What is it?
Well, it's called Randomiser, and it's fitted to the guidance systems and operates under a very complex scientific principle called potluck. Now, no one knows where we're going. Not even the Black Guardian.
Not even us.
Hello, and welcome to the Randomiser Podcast. This is episode 38. I am Tim.
And I am Charles. Rah! Unaccustomed as I am to... Oh, sorry.
Yes, I asked Chaz to beware of testing the mic at a quiet level and then going all Brian Blessed, which is why he's gone all Brian Blessed. Anyway,
Did you sleep with my daughter?
What?
Did you sleep with my daughter? Not sleep, Caesar. Not sleep, eh?
Is this like Claudius?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
Well, you said Brian Blessed.
Okay, spoiler warnings this time for all episodes of Doctor Who up to and including Wild Blue Yonder. And a little spoiler for the new version of Adventure in Time and Space, or Space and Time, I always get that wrong. You know, the thing they did for the 50th with Bradley as the first Doctor.
And spoiler warning for I, Claudius.
Yes, too late for that. Or you have spoiled it for everyone, I suppose.
Oh,
So,
shit.
yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay.
So, we've had Wild Blue Yonder, but I've also, since last time, seen the Star Beast commentary track version, which was nice. Let's just get this Adventure in Time and Space, or Space and Time.
Space and Time.
Space and Time thing out of the way. So, the new ending, if you don't want to know and go and watch it yourself, you literally just need to skip forward 30 seconds. But it has Shitty in it instead of Matt Smith now, which is kind of nice.
It was always the plan, really, when Mark Gatiss originally made it. The idea for the Doctor at the end was that whoever was the current Doctor, when it was repeated, could be inserted in, and they have done that.
Yeah.
But, as always, people have chosen to forgotten that and gone out of their mind that they are rewriting history.
Okay, let's talk about Wild Blue Yonder.
Indeed.
So, we've had a bit of a journey, I think. I was gripped by it, and I think you could retitle this episode Think. Like, don't think, don't even think. But I totally loved it. The CG was strained at some points, but I didn't really care. It's just a shame, though, because it's usually so good. But I thought the big limbs and stuff looked really good. It was just the general long corridor and that moment where Tennant alarmingly talks out of his arse.
And also the giant versions of them.
Oh, the sort of crammed in the corridor.
Yeah.
My thought when I was watching that was like, it's the Dr. Donna. I don't know, that one I didn't mind so much. It was just something about the kind of, very green screeniness of it. And of course Russell has explicitly made a sort of cheeky comparison to Underworld.
Which I thought was quite amusing, actually.
So a little disingenuous, but it was great.
The only one thing I would want to say about the corridor, I just thought to myself, all I kept thinking was London Underground.
So it looked a bit clean for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Admittedly, but it looked like a tube station. Half expect to see a Yeti coming out.
It's like another anniversary thing. No, I wonder if it had been a bit darker, that would have helped with the effects.
Few people have suggested that.
I guess so. I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's it's beautiful in some ways. It's just it doesn't quite trick your brain enough. But that aside, the episode was really lovely and strong and creepy as hell. You got heavy shades of midnight without being as perfect an episode as that, but still super chilling and gripping.
Very much. When I watched it, I was I did have a lot of uneasy feeling during it. The moment when we had what appeared to be bad editing,
yes.
I was like, right, something's happening here.
Yeah.
And that's when my lizard brain kicked in, sort of thing.
Started basking in the sun. And...
more or less. But no, it was leaving me feel a little uneasy until I completely got what was going on.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of minutes where it's a little disconcerting, and I think it's entirely deliberate rather than an accident. And I don't think it's bad editing so much as editing that's deliberately disconcerting and looks wrong.
Oh, I didn't mean it was. I just think it was
Well, at first you're like, oh, there's
originally,
yeah. It's like, hang on, they're suddenly over there.
It was obviously deliberate,
It's
but
like
it just my brain couldn't click as to what was happening.
It was like a time jump, but wasn't. So I think this is when they've separated and suddenly, is it Donna comes into the Doctor first, or the other way around?
I think it's the Doctor comes into Donna and sits down.
And then you're like, oh, that's weird, he was just over there.
Yeah.
And then...
And also the way he's sort of there interacting.
Oh, he's playing it just so subtly well. But no, I think you get that it's deliberate when we then go back to the Donna coming in with the Doctor. So the moment you see the Tennant's still in the other room, then you're like, oh, okay, this is doubles.
Yeah.
And hooray, doubles. Love an episode with doubles. No, I think the performances were just great, and and the weirdness of my arms are too long. And
that's one. A few people have actually said that's one of those phrases that'll probably go into the lexicon of Doctor Who. Are you my mummy? And
like with the angels have the phone box. Are you my mummy? My arms are too long. No, it was really cool, and I love that sort of creeping dread and the kind of W2F factor, I think the kind of Tennant Spiderwalk moment, they're obviously just all hell's breaking loose, but that was where it slightly got a bit over the line for me.
There was a few bits where you were ramping up the creepy and then you did something that kind of took you out of it a little by just being a little bit too silly in that sense.
Yeah, I think it was the combo of that was one of the dodgier effects. The face didn't quite seem to fit.
I also tend to think that bit is just going to be a meme from now to eternity.
Oh well.
Whenever someone in Doctor Who is talking out of their arse,
And so, alongside all of that, we've got the kind of the things that feel like they're teasers for later. So we've got Isaac Newton. And a lovely sort of set piece with the TARDIS and the tree. And I've since watched the Unleashed. I keep wanting to call it Confidential, where they show that they were actually, in fact, miles apart and never in the same place, which is a pity. But this leads to this slightly shonky thing about Newton saying, mavity. And of course, I'm pretty sure Newton didn't invent the word gravity or coin it in that context. It was like, I think he was writing in Latin. It would have been gravitas and gravitation. Universal gravitation was his thing. But let's grant them that, and let's just sort of run with it. So from then on in the rest of the episode, occasionally, I think Donna's saying mavity, and Tennant's kind of doing a bit of both, and so it doesn't get resolved within the episode.
It was vaguely amusing. I just didn't see the point of it.
Well, I think they see the point next week, I hope.
I don't think so. I mean, it might. The only thing I could see happening from it is, anytime gravity is supposedly mentioned in the future, they might say mavity. But to be honest, if that's the case, then that's got to be a joke that is worn so thin.
I honestly don't think it's a joke. I think Newton saying it, getting the words wrong's a little titter before the titles, but I think that's not. I think that's as far as the joke goes. The fact that it then comes back, I think, has to have a payoff.
If I'm wrong, fair enough, but I don't think so, and I just think it wasn't that funny.
That's what I mean.
Funny-ish.
A titter. The other thing is the salt regret. So he pours the line of salt, and then later on he sort of says, in a weird way, "Oh, I wish I hadn't done the salt thing." Now, I've got two thoughts about the salt. One is that definitely seems to be set up to pay off later as well.
Yeah.
The other thing about the salt is, where the fuck did it come from?
Well, he's got pockets.
Well, I knew you'd say that, but that's all very well when you're Tom Baker in a big baggy coat. But when you're David Tennant in a tight suit and tight trousers...
Not necessarily. I mean, David Tennant had pockets that were bigger on the inside as well.
He's not wearing
and
his
he only
coat.
had his suit on when the Arachnos, when he took out that big remote control.
All right.
And she said, and it was Tate that said it.
I'm not really complaining about it. I'm just like, it's stretching credulity.
Everything's stretching
Unless we
credulity.
think Tennant's got salt in his pants. It's like,
Yeah, probably.
maybe that's what he was regretting. I wish I hadn't done that thing with the salt. He didn't mean pouring it on the floor. He meant stashing it down his wife runs.
Well, maybe. Maybe
Anyway.
salt's currency. Maybe he's going to go back to ancient Rome.
So one extra sort of tiny teeny spoiler. So skip ahead a minute if you're gonna want to avoid a spoiler to do with a returning character, and it is Wilf. My heart just absolutely sang when he appeared. And I think the spoiler aspect of this is that we now know from Russell that that's it.
Yeah.
That's all they managed to film. But it was such a perfect final scene.
Yeah.
And
It was
dear,
lovely.
dear Bernard Cribbins. It was just brought it all back again. What
don't
a
know.
joy he was.
I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but I do get this feeling that Bernard Cribbins is the one thing that
Everyone loves him.
disagrees about everything with the exception of Bernard Cribbins.
Yeah. Surely there must be a Cribbins hater out there.
I'm sure. Well, we'll give £1,000 to the first person that rings in that hates Bernard Cribbins.
A, we don't have a phone number.
That's the point.
B, I certainly don't have £1,000. C, I'm not paying anyone for hating
But we
Cribbs.
don't need to tell them.
I see. So it's just a honey trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, once we find them out, we can go around to their house and beat them up.
Okay. So, the other thing that arose after Wild Blue Yonder was just what I found a really fascinating and genuinely kind of insightful kind of conversation that Chaz and I had, because we had we talked last week about how I love going in cold, and this was one of the most secret episodes ever. And so, what we discovered was that we both had therefore gone in with completely different expectations, and what it made me realise is that there's different expectations in terms of spoilers, sure, but I definitely had expectations, but those were vague. Those were expectations like I expect it to be good, and I expect it to involve, David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and maybe a little robot, and that was it. That was kind of, just general expectations rather than material specific plot expectations. Whereas Chaz had sort of ideas gleaned from the wider fandom and from the internet in general. And those expectations, is it fair to say, really kind of coloured what you thought of it the first time?
DWM had the redacted. The official lot had been saying about, it's unlighting, you've seen, it's this, it's that. The hype had been built up, and, Russell himself admitted that they'd maybe built it up a bit too much, etc.
Yeah.
It's just the way it obviously got built up, then fed into the fandom, who obviously
Built it up 2 zillion times more.
I don't think it was that difficult to believe that you were getting something more, mainly because this is part of the 60th, and we haven't really had anything 60th in terms of the specials.
Yeah, so be specific, because, we talked about how...
Yeah, I was meaning...
an anniversary year, you tend to expect multi-doctors.
Yeah.
And you told me there was a picture of, Matt Smith or something?
At one point, the director of this episode had... It was like a silhouette cutout or picture of Matt Smith, and you could see a tweed bow tie, etc. And it was in the TARDIS, and it had been photographed. And he was obviously, okay, fair enough, he was maybe playing with people, but that had got out. RTD had said, whatever happened to Susan Foreman? Things like that. You've got a 60th, you sort of are expecting a lot. I'm not saying we haven't seen the giggle yet, so who knows, but you're expecting things, and...
Susan does giggle.
That's true. You're not unforgiven for thinking that things might happen. Yeah, okay, the general perceived thing about an anniversary is it's going to always be multi-doctor. I suppose it doesn't have to be, but the other thing to think of is if you're going to have doctors come back, it's more or less your only chance, and if you're going 10 years at a time, with some people you might not have that time. We got Tales from the TARDIS, but I didn't really expect any classic doctors to be in this one, because they're all getting quite old, and I agree, fan expectation can outweigh itself sometimes.
Russell had said in the official Doctor Who podcast that he'd been aware that fan expectations were kind of well high, and people seemed to expect Matt Smith, I think was one of the things he said.
Yeah, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and the ghost of William Hartnell riding on the Garm.
That's right. That's right. I forgot it was said so funny, and that's really interesting because I think this maybe is like a backfiring of some of the ways they're kind of. I mean, hype's a sort of not necessarily a derogative word, but trying to publicize the show and trying to share their excitement and so on. And I think it's interesting to me that I'm trying to be very careful about which channels I look at around these specials. I've stayed off Mastodon more or less. I've also sort of shied away from the kind of slightly wider but still kind of official-ish channels like Russell. I don't use Instagram anyway, but Russell posts on that and so on. But and also anything like following the directors of any particular episode is I'm just not doing that. So
But
none of this stuff's coming to me. Well, again, I don't remember reading anything particularly that didn't sink in, and also I sort of read this stuff once and quickly, and then I'm just not on the mindset of trying to analyse it for clues because I don't want them. And I think I sort of feel slightly vindicated in that approach because this is sort of people's hopes and expectations, and let's be fair, kind of biases about what an anniversary year should include. That's kind of led a lot of people to expect things of Wild Blue Yonder that it just wasn't ever going to deliver. And I think that's the kind of disconnect that Russell's become aware of. So as an episode itself, there's two layers to it. There's two readings of it. There's this, this isn't the thing that I was strongly expecting. And so that kind of wrecks your first watch of something for me. And so I kind of, I was glad that I hadn't had any of those expectations. I was grateful to you for not sharing any of those expectations because you know how I like to go in cold, and I don't want to be smug about it. I'm not trying to say that my way is the way to do it, because you get great satisfaction and enjoyment from this kind of immersion in the what ifs and what might be coming. I think it's a sort of trap that everybody kind of created for themselves this time. Again, I think Russell talks about it in the podcast, or maybe the people in the podcast do, that you can't. The answer isn't to have less secrecy, because then you're just sort of telling people, it's an episode of the Doctor and Donna and they meet doubles of themselves.
Yeah.
And that really does spoil the episode. So you kind of had to have secrecy over the major arc of the plot, but then because this is one of the 360th specials, bam. Well, I don't know, it feels to me, the vibe I'm getting, if you like, is that things like Other Doctors, I could be completely wrong next week, like say, but things like Other Doctors are being done peripherally to the three specials themselves. So we've had Tales from the TARDIS. Russell's done a big We're Back episode. He's done a quiet look at these amazing performers and how lucky we are to have them again episode. And I suspect the giggle will be the kind of fireworks and big finishy, not that sort, finale to these three.
I think the only thing I would say in respect to that is that the Tales from the TARDIS, as he said himself, had only actually came into being around about July, because
an afterthought,
it was an afterthought, exactly. He thought he hadn't done enough to find the 60th.
Well, what you're saying about Tales from TARDIS makes perfect sense in light of whether or not we get returning new series Doctors or not. Whether or not we get returning new series Doctors, it makes perfect sense that Russell's like, what can I do for the classic series Doctors? I haven't done enough. Tales from the TARDIS, bang. Yeah. But I will not be disappointed if the whole 60th passes without a single glimpse of the prior Doctor. Well, Tennant notwithstanding. I mean, in a sense, you've got all three of them have a returning Doctor.
Well, he's now had another incarnation of himself.
Anything else about the episode itself? Big hands. Should give it a big hand. Oh, God.
Remind me of Kenny Everett.
But it wasn't the best possible taste.
It was giving creepy horror vibes, but things like the big hands and long limbs, this weird feeling of comedy horror, but the comedy wasn't landing as much.
Well, I think it's because it's horror. So the comedy is not belly laugh comedy, and it's not slapstick. It's kind of grotesque comedy. It's the comedy of fear. So it's unnerving. It's weird. It's body horror, and so it's funny because that's a sort of defensive reaction to, what would you do if this person you thought you knew suddenly had enormous hands and was standing there. It's like utterly ridiculous, but also kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's just a taste thing, but I watch a lot of horror anyway. I don't expect Doctor Who to be grotesque.
Well, grotesque isn't gory.
I just didn't think it worked that well. I think sound effects would have helped more. When, for example, the knee and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd prefer more bone crunching off screen. That would have really sent my shivers down my neck, or in shadow,
like a growing shadow. Yeah,
things like that.
Well, this would all be...
they're very well worn tropes, but they're that because they work. And I think little things like that would have definitely gave it that edge that it needed. I was creeped out by it. I thought it had an unnatural feel to it, but it wasn't like up there with like some Midnight or anything that was truly scary.
Midnight's like a tour de force, but that's all in the script and performances. Yeah. Whereas this one you're showing,
it's got midnight elements.
The sort of mysterious creature from outside, except this time it's inside.
I mean, there are other little things. I did like the pilot who was outside, although I do question how in a vacuum you lose all your skin.
Maybe that was what they looked like normally. It was a horse skull species.
Skull.
Yeah. No. But back to the creepy horror thing. It was totally effective for me, and I can totally recognise the choices you're talking about crackling bones and creepy shadows and stuff as being other ways to do it. And also they would have ramped it up. And it's all about where you pitch it, and these I think they were really skillful and deliberate in where they pitched it, rather than missing tricks. I think they've just not gone to a certain extreme with the horror, for whatever reason, because you want to balance where you're pitching this. This is on at 6:30 on a Saturday night, so.
But they have managed to go a little bit further
for
before.
Sure. And Midnight's proper out terrifying, and there's been more grotesque and gory things that have happened for sure, but I think this is where they wanted it, and some of the kind of limits of the effects notwithstanding, I think it's a tremendously skillful piece of work. I really loved it.
It's an acting tour de force, it really is, for both of them.
Totally. What we'll find out on Saturday is what the big finale is going to be.
Yeah.
I've got expectations again, which are qualitative, that Russell's going to throw all the bells and whistles at it. I don't know, I'll be interested to see if I like this one the least of the three, because Russell's finales have often felt indulgent to me and so on. But as well as being a finale, the other thing I'm tremendously excited about is the first step into the Gatwa era.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, as I was saying, acting wise, it was great character building for both of them, and also some lovely creepy acting from both of them.
Lots to enjoy?
Yeah, lots to enjoy in that, definitely. And also when they vaguely addressed the Timeless Child, but addressed Flux, it was interesting. Because Tennant was obviously believing he was talking to Tate then, talking to Donna.
Well, that's the other thing, the irony.
It really disturbed him, and you saw him taking his frustration out.
Yeah.
And somebody had said somewhere, I can't remember, that in that whole bit, he'd sort of emoted more than Jodie had emoted in the entire Flux.
Oh, very nice.
Really, that's what was needed. If we're going to explore Flux and the Timeless Child, we really need more of that. Anger at himself, anger at what happened, and exploring it,
Yeah,
and this really was good. The two of them were great together. They had some nice little lighter moments, but the intense moments were very good, and the ending, I can honestly say, I genuinely thought there was a possibility she was going to die.
Yeah, me too.
Because it was played in such a way that you weren't 100% sure.
Yeah.
And also, you could say that undoing the end of Journey's End is a bit of a crime, because it's such an amazing ending that the only way you could really top it is to kill off Donna.
I don't know. I think turning it believably into a happy ending is nice too. I mean, next week notwithstanding, but
I think sometimes I'm just spitballing, but I think happy endings they're not as satisfying. Personally, I think
you miserable bastard.
Maybe, but I think that there's something very sad but very satisfying sometimes about a sort of a downer ending. You know,
I love these characters.
I do love
and
them.
just every so often, skillfully done. It's always about that. It's okay for them not to be mind wiped or burnt up in the sun.
But they're not always, are they?
No, I know, but
And this was one of the very few proper endings in New Who, because Stephen Moffat always did a cop out in some way or another.
yeah, true. How many times did Clara die?
Exactly.
But
Or
no, let me
Rory.
talk about the Tennant and Tate talking to each other thing, because you're right. This isn't just a kind of do amazing acting and be creepy. It's also let's talk about your past. Let's talk about this is not the 10th Doctor. This is this is a new Doctor, the 14th, who has the memories of who he was and what happened to him as a woman and during the flux. And it's so good, so skillful for Russell to put it in there, because I think this wish to either just pretend it didn't happen or not talk about it ever again with most of the things that, generally speaking, people haven't liked in the past is childish. I think it's just, demeaning to the work of the TV professionals who've given their love to make us Doctor Who. We don't always love it a lot in return, but we always love that it's there. And so to have this kind of addressed in, frankly, the hands of a more skillful writer who can begin to wrap some of it up and address some of it, that's great. Bring it on. And maybe they will now never touch on it again. Maybe that's all we needed, was just the sense that, it's kind of naff that half the universe is destroyed and never talked about again. So let's, even if we nod to it.
I mean, you watch, what was it, Eve of the Daleks, and nothing said about what had just happened. Or it just felt it had no stake whatsoever.
Well, I think that's the thing with Chibnall, was writes amazing epic sort of situations, but doesn't then know what the hell to do about it. There's so much that I love about that era, and I'm looking forward to kind of revisiting it in time. But it's not the same things that I love about the Moffat and Russell's eras.
Oh, no, exactly.
And now we're not just getting a replay of the 10th Doctor.
No.
And Russell's grown in the many years in between as a writer.
Absolutely.
Television has grown and changed. So there's so many things that this program can do. The stories to tell are still infinite, and that's really lovely.
I noticed a couple of things happen with Donna. He pulls her hand and kisses it.
He's
right?
tender.
Yeah, but that is the same mannerism as Matt Smith used to do.
Ah, nice.
And I thought, he's picked up on these little bits. That's a really interesting, just subtle little acting choices. Because do you remember Matt Smith, I think, is holding Rory and Amy, and it's like just that kiss on the head, stuff like that. I thought that I like. And I also thought it was a rather fun little joke when Donna said Isaac Newton was hot, and he goes, yeah, he was hot. Oh, and she goes, he goes, she said, yeah, to be fair, it was never that far from the surface.
Him and Sim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so nice, subtle, just
growth
bit of banter, and also,
you know what else? Positive masculinity.
Yeah,
it's not like he's not all, oh gosh, I'm having weird feelings.
Well, I mean, Tennant always was, because he sort of let him all look, sort of thing.
Yeah,
because him and Jack flirted. So
it's just made me think. Actually, you remember Peter Davison's much maligned, but kind of, I think, well meant but stupid comments about a female doctor about, but what a shame, because the Doctor's always been a role model for boys.
Yeah.
And I think that's true, but there's no reason not to have the character be a woman. Put that aside, what it's made me think of is that, this is the Doctor back to being a positive 21st century role model for men, for boys and men, to think, you can have emotions, you can deal with these things,
When Davison commented what he did at the time, I mean, I sort of understood what he was talking about, because sometimes, especially younger boys before they've started learning
Yeah.
things, it's more difficult for them, say, to relate to a female than it would be another male. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the idea of casting a woman.
It's always slightly puzzled me that, I mean, I guess it's a form of representation. You see yourself as a man represented. But we've had, like, you know, however many years of it, give someone else a turn. But it's always slightly puzzled me that the sort of flip side of it is logically, therefore, it's like, oh, well, I can't possibly learn anything or relate to a female hero, you know.
Of course.
And again, he's taken out of context. It's made to be some sort of anti-female point rather than some, hey, men need role models, and fuck, do they ever?
Yeah,
you
of
know?
course.
But
Need positive role models. I mean, when I was younger, I used to watch the Sweeney. I used to, and it was
that's why you always kick the door in.
Yeah, but that's the point, isn't it? All the role models were, apart from the Doctor, were all guns or aggravation or whatever. Whereas, you know, you don't need that. You don't need that to be a positive. I mean, you look at David Tennant. There's nothing aggressive in that performance. He gets angry, but it's not aggression. It's solving problems with your mind, and also being kind to people without sort of being full-faced.
Yeah.
You know,
No, he has his outbursts and then he's done. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, he even quickly said, "You, the coffee," and he went, "Oh, no, sorry."
Exactly.
You know.
I think this is a glorious thing that's in the mix as well. The one thing the Doctor's pretty much always been, Eric Sayward notwithstanding, has been a hero who doesn't resort to violence, or when they do, there are consequences for them.
Yeah. Oh, could I just say, and I'm not disparaging the Sweeney in any way, it still fucking rules.
There's another thing a bit like the Mavity thing which I wanted to touch on as well. We've got the Wild Blue Yonder, Wide Blue Yonder kind of mix up. And I think there's that sort of Mandela effect sort of thing about how things get muddled up in the popular culture and in your mind. Think about things like Play It Again, Sam, which is not the quote from Casablanca, Elementary, My Dear Watson, all of those things. Even Lead On Macduff is Leon Macduff. I mean, I did it myself the other day. Somebody was talking about films set in malls, and I said, Romero, wherefore art thou, Romero? But the problem with that, it's funny, but the problem is that wherefore means why, not where. It's why are you a Romeo? Why is that why are you not the family that I can love?
I don't think that's the quote anyway. I'm pretty sure it's Romeo and not Romero.
Well, no,
I know.
God.
Jeez, you're so gullible.
Yeah. You're so mullible.
Yeah, but Wild Blue Yonder and Wide Blue Yonder are both songs.
Right. Okay, that's what I'm missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's the Wide Blue Yonder is the militaristic one. You know.
Yeah, and that feels like one that maybe has a deeper significance, but also maybe not.
It's the point that that Donna was making about when they sang it in class and how it sounds all jovial, and
it's not
Wilf
jovial.
objected to it because it's it's actually a war anthem. What we were saying last week about the Star Beast is going to say lose its shine after.
You hate it now.
No. It's going to lose its shine after, say, a bit of time. Whereas I think this one is going to gain more as it goes on. It's going to be one that you'll watch in years to come and reevaluate and think,
I think this is what I feel about the not small number of people who seem to have gone into it expecting something different. And so I feel sad because you never get another first time. But at the same time, yes, great. Now you can sort of step back from that, and as time passes, you know that's not what's coming, so you can step back and enjoy it for what it is.
That's interesting about what you say about you never get another first time. That's obviously very true.
You can make another point about your memory.
That's obviously very true, but I have fantastic memories of when I started to be able to see old Doctor Who again, when I met a few people and got recordings of old episodes and how excited I was to watch them, and like I rewatched and rewatched them. So to me, there was more fun in the
rewatch.
rediscovery.
Well, yeah,
You
sure,
know?
because the first time's not the only one that matters. You also never get another second time.
Of
I had to
course.
think carefully about phrasing
Yeah,
that.
good. I think that also feeds into how we both feel about how we watch it or the way we watch it, you know. So to you, the most special thing is the first watch.
No, the first watch I want to be cold. It's not necessarily the
Okay.
most special thing.
All right, fair enough.
And beyond that, then I'm free to immerse myself in what everybody else thinks. And then I'm free to revisit it. And that's glorious too.
See, some of my most fun watches, and I do it with first watch, is when I'm surrounded by people, and yeah, we may even talk through it. I know it really freaks you
Die
out
heretic.
unbelievably to the point where I think we would stab each other.
Oh, and the first time, capital punishment.
Yeah.
Any other time, as long as everybody's kind of in agreement, no problem. But that's the thing. We've got all of that luxury now when we can rewatch things.
Yeah.
And a lot of first times for me have been really nerve-wracking because, you know, we've talked about this a lot, that you're worried for the future of the programme if you're not liking an episode. So when it is a bad one or one that's got problems, let's be generous, then I think there is that sort of, oh shit, it's not, the show's going to be doomed. You know, or a lesser version of that running through your mind. So first times are not always this sort of pure sacrosanct glory. I like to give it my full attention with no talking and not know much about it. That's it.
That's fair enough, because that is the way you prefer to do it.
The first time.
First time, be it the first time or the fifth time or whatever, you know. I'm not protective of that. I'm quite happy to talk during it because I am still taking it in.
That's an interesting thing that's just occurred to me. I do struggle to process in busy environments.
Yeah, you have auditory problems.
Yeah, and also maybe processing sort of things going on that, you know, I can't I literally miss stuff if there's other noise in the room and so on. So, you know, part of it is just, I want to watch this new Doctor Who, and then after that all bets are off.
It's the same when you're driving though. You can't
I want to watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, you can't watch Doctor Who and drive.
Yeah.
You know? No, but when you drive, you know, you really have to kind of have 100% concentration on.
Yeah.
Too much.
I think I just have less
You need to have
spare
one
capacity.
Yeah.
The other problem with driving and watching Doctor Who is I can only turn left.
Yeah.
One more thing to talk about for the Star Beast, which was that I sort of woke up one morning in the week after it and literally had the sort of chills because I'd had a thought. And it's just simply this. Rose makes toys.
She's
A toy maker.
yeah.
So, was that going to pay off? Or is this just because toys were on Russell's mind?
I think it might pay off into the dividends of the BBC bank.
Nice. I love it. Well, no, I mean, it's...
Do you honestly think those plushies aren't going to suddenly start appearing?
No, I don't know if it's coincidence. Feels unlikely, but I also really, really hope it's not going to subvert Rose in any way, because, you know, I want to see more of this character, but... And also we were talking about happy endings for Donna and so on, but anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm kind of just... I've just sort of put a pin in that, and it literally made me just sort of fear for Rose.
You put a pin in that. What one is the pincushion one?
Yeah. Very good. No, the big fluffy one's eye at the back. You know, maybe it's a kind of Wolves of Fenric sort of thing. Or
So when Rose was born as male, Donna gives her the name Jason, which is healer. Means healer.
Yeah, I think that was
doctor.
Russell on the podcast mentioned.
But the other thing is that she's called Rose because she names herself. Because a trans person picks their own name.
Oh, and at that point, Donna wouldn't remember that was...
Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought, fuck, that's clever.
It's almost like we need a moment of Donna going, oh, hang on, Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I don't know why it suddenly came in, and I thought, she's named herself, of course.
I suspect Russell has just come up with let's call a character Rose to fuck with the fans.
But I always, if you go back to the writer's tale and think what a lucky bastard he is at
Joining
times,
the dots, yeah.
because sometimes nothing's been planned in advance.
Muff at the same, yeah.
That whole thing with the
knocking
heartbeat,
3 times,
blah 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 blah.
yeah.
And there've been quite a few, and obviously when he ended Donna 15 years ago, binary, you know.
Well, that's
then
it's just the sort of clever way of
but it works in, doesn't
paying
it?
things off.
It suddenly works itself out. There's foreshadowing without possibly even being meant to foreshadow.
It's kind of like backshadowing or something.
Yes. But the whole thing of of course she chose her own name.
Aft shadowing? I don't know what the
God's sake.
foreshadowing in retrospect is. Yeah, well, that's the skill that you see, and the Writer's Tale's a lovely book for kind of unpicking some of that and showing you the works.
A man is the sum of his memories, a Time Lord even more so.
So it's time for your Cheatin Memory. So we chose a random episode from the randomiser.net and rewatched the Daleks Invasion of Earth.
Oh.
So this has been newly restored to black and white and expanded from the colour version starring Peter Cushing.
Absolutely.
I'm much more familiar with the Cushing film, as I've said before, so it's always interesting to see this. And it's maybe only the second or third time I've actually watched the original story. To lead us in, I'll just tell you how we watched it. So we had fun with the formats. We watched episodes 1 and 2 on VHS, up in Chaz's old sort of CRT TV video recorder. That was fun. And then episode 3 we watched on the DVD, episode 4 on iPlayer, and then 5 and 6 on the season 2 collection Blu-ray. We noticed there was a bit of distortion on the season 2 Blu-ray, and I checked at home with my copy on my TV in case it was something in your settings. It seemed to be maybe a little less obvious, but still there. So I think DVD was the winner in terms of picture quality.
Yeah, possible.
So what did you think? Talking of rewatches for the umpteenth time.
I found myself falling in love with it once again. Every time you think, I'll probably not enjoy it as much this time or whatever, but no, I loved it, and I kind of really liked the way we did it because it was interesting seeing the progression of, fandom in a lot of ways, because, you've got that initial that initial VHS and then
that
the
suffered
cleanup by fans.
The VHS had VHS
astounding.
artifacts as well as film print.
Yeah,
all the lines and the
BBC
grain.
logo and all that sort of thing.
So there was kind of a twofold loss of quality.
Yeah.
And it was really a kind of nostalgia watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much. But, no, I mean, it's a cracking little story, and as I pointed out to you, you sit and watch it and it feels as if it's toddling along all jolly, but then you sit and think about it and you think, holy fuck, this is grim.
Yeah.
Because this is about 20 years from the end of World War II. You've got the thing about prisoners, getting rid of their jewellery or whatever to get extra food, brother against brother over the
two ladies who shop them in for food.
Yeah, it's like they used to have, in France, they would employ locals to subjugate some of the population.
Yeah, collaborators.
Yeah. So
well,
the
Robomen
are collaborators in a way, and they're so, we've taken the Nazi thing with Daleks to, extremes before and stuff. I think this is, I think this is the rawest portrayal of it.
Well, it's
in a lot of
one
ways.
of Terry Nation's ever recurring stories. The coding of it, if you like, is very much kind of resistance workers, underground cells, listening to the radio announcements, the kind of the betrayals and the kind of best and the worst of humanity and all of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
What did I think? Robomen, they're just awful and clunky. I find them. It's that robotic equals slow equals God, get on with it kind of thing for me. A lot of the time, it's like we will... No, hang on, that's my Ogron voice.
Yeah.
It's like, I think they could give the Ogrons a run for their money in terms of no complications.
Yeah, I'll say something about that, because with the Robomen, they're clunky and slow, but these are human beings who are probably being... Their bodies are exhausted and whatever, but they can't not do things, so that would even... physically slow them and stuff
for sure.
like that.
It's just the performances are so leaden
Yeah.
and robotic that you don't... again, there's a missed opportunity for horror, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, especially with the brother, even just a tiny inkling of a moment of hesitation before he shoots him or anything like that. It's,
I suppose it's like the Daleks version of the Cybermen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also with similar kind of narrative potential, if you like. But it was Doctor Who of the time. It was shot live with minimal time for rehearsal. And I also don't know to what extent the speaking Robomen parts were kind of given much thought.
Yeah, probably not.
They're functional.
I think there's only about 2 or 3 Robomen who speak at all.
And unlike in the Cushing movie, we have no idea what they eat.
Yeah, true. The interesting thing I liked was the use of the ordinary and everyday. We're in the future, and rather than spend the budget desperately trying to make it look futuristic,
cars and whatnot,
we go to a transport museum to get our transport for our cars and so on.
London's literally been bombed back to the 1960s.
Exactly. And the only thing really we get are the Daleks and that admittedly dodgy flying saucer. The rest of it is all... It's just a wasteland, or it's just... We've got stuff that we're having to reuse old things.
Yeah,
so
to make, do, and mend.
Yeah,
much like the budget.
And I thought that's a really clever way of getting round everything.
Yeah. Let's talk about Barbara.
Barbara is out of Ian, Barbara, and Susan. I think the team of Ian and Barbara work brilliantly, but Barbara Wright is possibly the best original series companion, and I would say her only comparable companion in the new series is Donna Noble.
Yeah, there we go. I love Barbara, especially in this, and especially in the control room scene. She absolutely rocks.
Yeah.
And the van escape scene is her favourite as well. It's like, really gutsy. It's sort of, the show can write well for women when it tries.
Yeah. And Barbara, like the late Queen herself, had a heavy goods vehicle licence. Or if she was,
well, she certainly adapted to
if
that
she
garbage
didn't,
truck.
then she, she should have been written off. Got written up off screen.
It's like escape the Daleks only to fall foul of a traffic warden. Yeah. No, great stuff for Barbara in this. Susan gets more to do as well, which is nice, but she's still really over the top. Quite annoying.
And it's a bit late, really. Giving her something to do.
Too little, too late. But the other scene that I kind of really enjoyed. I mean, it's as a first companion departure. It gets a bit of effort, which is good, given what's to come with ones like Dodo and so on. But poor Dodo, poor Ben and Polly.
Oh,
but
God, yeah.
There is the rather suspicious fish seduction scene, which all I could think of as David holds and strokes Susan's hands is that his hands must absolutely stink of the fish he was just waving in her face.
You're just setting this one up, aren't you?
I'd really...
David's fish fingers in his encounter with Susan.
I do think she gets left in, and to rebuild the world, and that's quite a hard world to be left in.
What,
so maybe they founded a
fish
fingers empire.
maybe when they got older,
and he grew a
David
white
became
beard.
Captain Buckshot.
Yeah. Do we find Ouse Campbell, isn't it?
Yeah.
His surname's not Birdseye.
Susan Campbell.
Yeah. Okay, another controversial thought. I quite like the Slither.
Yeah, no, Slither's fine.
Okay, oh, damn.
What?
No argument there. It's like,
Oh, right, you expect me to?
Well, it's...
Oh, I mean, Jesus, no, anything amazing, and, but at the end of the day, you're talking 64, probably one of the most ambitious things they've done, because there's a lot of location stuff and so on. So, Yeah, I think the sliver's perfectly fine.
Great. Now, there's one shot when they're in the kind of mine bucket, when it's coming at them, that I think the camera's conspicuously staying off it for a shot or two.
Yeah.
It's
I did like it. So
the slither playing a zither.
oh god, that's going to be the fucking episode.
Oh, no, fish seduction. That's my
No, David's fish finger.
David's fish fingers.
Definitely.
There might be a brand. We might get sued or sponsored. Either way,
I don't think we'll get sued.
I don't think we'll get sponsored.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything else about Daleks Invasion of Earth, or should we choose another?
I think we watched it with the updated effects from the Blu-ray onwards. So we've seen both. Updated effects actually work quite nicely, I think.
The saucer looked like a pie dish.
Yeah.
Rather than a wobbly pie dish.
Yeah, I mean, the initial effects, I think the only dodgy thing was the initial bit with the saucer that didn't look particularly great. In the movie, it looked pretty decent, actually.
It's such a shame for this, because you have always got the movie to compare it to, and especially because that's what I saw first and most. Before we move on, just a quick plug for a podcast called I Don't Do Sci-Fi, which is John Isles, Rebecca and Danny Ray. So Danny is not a huge sci-fi fan, so John and Rebecca are introducing her to various sci-fi programs and films, and there's an episode on the two Peter Cushing Dalek movies, so that has a bit of comparison with the TV version in it. And just generally, it's a really enjoyably charming kind of podcast, as Danny reacts sort of very much without much of a filter to a lot of this sci-fi television. It's great fun, and I've discovered some other sci-fi like the Rollerball and what's the other one, Death Race, that they watched that I hadn't seen before.
Great movie.
Yeah, so check that out. It's called I Don't Do Sci-Fi, and it's just great fun, especially their episodes concerning Doctor Who. There's one I'm looking forward to, I haven't watched yet, listened to yet, which is Star Trek movies 2, 3 and 4. I noticed they didn't try 1, which is
Perhaps a bit too much.
yeah.
Look, when I give the word, press the button. The big one? Yes, maybe it works in conjunction with the others.
Let's choose a new episode. So I think we've been quite spoilt for old series, so although we had the Monks trilogy before.
I'd still be quite happy with an old series one.
Okay.
Perhaps the Underworld.
that would be too good. All right, here we go.
All right, well, let's try and find out. Now, what could it be?
Oh my goodness, it's the Abominable Snowman.
Oh.
Sweet. Is that
Which means
animated?
we sort of need to get hold of the animation.
Yeah.
I haven't got it.
Neither. Oh well. Maybe we can spend some of our remaining podcast budget of tuppence halfpenny on it.
Or maybe we can download it illegally.
Yes. Maybe. Maybe we can reenact it in your living room.
Oh no, I've got those really shitty fan animations.
We could look at the Fanimations.
Yeah.
Or the
I will watch it one way or another.
You're not mentioning telesnaps, I notice.
Fuck off. I will take a loan out if I have to and get the whole thing remounted.
Okay. So, we're going to watch The Abominable Snowman somehow.
Somehow.
There are some corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things. Things which act against everything that we believe in. They must be watched.
So this is Most Terrible Things. It's audience participation. Because we're nearing the end of the Tomorrow People, I realise with a bit of shock I'm in danger of not having any awful television or movies to watch. So in the spirit of there's some good in everything, we'll be watching some awful stuff and trying to find the silver lining, or at least have a laugh as we do it. So I want you, dear listeners, to write in, because the only correspondence we've had recently, apart from chat, has been from ultra-religious widows who want us to have a share in their late husband's fortune for some reason, and they don't seem to know much about Doctor Who. So, we want you to suggest to Chaz and me terrible things to watch. I do have a few guidelines. It should be fiction, and that probably rules this out, but just to be clear, it should be terrible but not explicitly politically terrible or outright evil, so we'll not be watching things like extreme right-wing man-babies crying about women's rights. We're thinking more bad horror films, cheesy sci-fi, unfunny comedies, but surprises. We should ideally be able to find and watch it, and ideally legally, looking at you, Chaz. We've got access to Prime Video, Netflix, Shudder, and of course YouTube. So do let us know where to
And my
find it.
DVD collection.
And your extensive DVD collection. Do please let us know where to find it if you can. And lastly, and most importantly, I've already seen Kinvig.
So here's your challenge.
It's challenge time, and having blown our entire podcast budget on hiring Sylvester McCoy last time, I hope Chaz has finally decided to watch it himself this time. So have you managed?
Okay, well, you know all the legalities that have been going
Yes.
on, right? So that's all finally been settled.
Hallelujah.
Judge has said no problem, fair rights, absolutely. So
Quite right. Justice has
finally
been done.
And with it being the 60th anniversary year, it turns out that they've, zooped it up, re-edited, all that. So
They have?
Yeah. It was great.
Where's this?
It's on Hooniverse.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so sat and watched it. Really good. Music's a bit funky at times, I must admit. It sort of took me out of it a little. And some of the editing choices is a bit strange, kept bloody repeating itself a lot. But in general, I think it's pretty good.
Just sounding familiar.
Yeah, the colour aspect of it was really very 60s, sort of appeal to it.
Well, no, that's how
And
70s colour it was originally made in.
oh, right. Oh, well, maybe they sort of brightened it up. It felt like they'd ramped it up. Maybe they were sort of trying for a 4K look
Like
to
a
it, sort of
super
thing.
saturated.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you think of the performances?
Yeah, no, I thought the performances were great all round.
John Pertwee?
Who?
John Pertwee?
John? No. I mean, unless they maybe cut him out of the re-edit, but I mean, William Hartnell was absolutely fantastic,
Hartnell.
and he was at his fluffiest and stuff like that, but he
Wait
had
a
a
minute.
genuine anti-hero feel to him, and Susan's interplay with him, although yes, she is an annoying character, but at least in the early stages, there was a lot more to do.
Can I take a guess at the actual mutants themselves only appearing very briefly and only in a cliffhanger?
Well, there was one point where Ian lifted the mutant out of its casing and stuff, and that was quite interesting because I don't think I'd ever seen that done before.
Like those other times where you've watched alternative, shall we say, versions of the mutants, I think the mutants in colour is not what I've asked you to watch. It's
What?
We'll try again next time.
Do you know how much money I have spent on this bloody court case? Trying to, I don't have money to
I
do
represented
anything
you
anymore.
pro bono, and after I talked for ages about you two, the judge threw the whole case out. So I don't see what you're complaining about. Next week, mate.
We'll see.
It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
9 times out of 10.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to get in touch, or if your arms are too long, then we can be reached by email at randomiserpodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to us on YouTube while watching trippy visuals at tinyurl.com/randomiser or follow us on Mastodon, randomiserpod at mastodon.social. And in all cases...
That is, wait for it, Randomiser with an S, not a Z.
We're doing an episode next week as well. And we'll probably do one after the Christmas episode.
Well, it is a time travel, so you can go back and forward and sort of,
Oh my
experiences.
Fucking
Christmas
God,
past.
editing this podcast.
Yep.